video, I'm going to show you how to use cut and sew foam for bra making. So right off the bat, you might be wondering, what exactly is cut and sew foam? Well, it's a foam, obviously, and it's something called a laminated foam, and you may see it sold as that. And what that means is that it has two layers of fabric here, so I have a front and a back, and then I have a layer of foam in between. They use heat to press these together and then create this laminated foam. It may also be called bra making foam, bra cup foam, swimwear foam, lots of different names for it, but basically what you're looking for is to have one layer of fabric, foam, and then another layer of fabric. It comes in lots of different colors, but a lot of times you may not see your cut and sew foam, so it might not be that important what color it is. Depending on the pattern that you use, it might tell you to size up if you're using cut and sew foam or use different pieces. The pattern that I'll be working with today actually did have some separate pieces to it to use for the foam, so they've kind of accounted for the thickness in these pieces and adjusted accordingly. With your cut and sew foam, you'll generally be putting something over top of it, so that might be stretch lace trim. So I might cut my cup here out of the foam, and then I'm going to cut a separate cup out of my stretch lace. You could still use your stabilized tricot, so again a layer of foam and then the tricot on top, or you could use something like an all-over lace fabric. There's lots of different options here. So why would I want to use cut and sew foam? Well, it's going to give me a little bit of shaping. So instead of just having the stabilized tricot there that gives you much more natural shaping of the breast, your foam is going to give you a bit more shaping. The foam that we're going to want to use is relatively thin. So this one here is a 1/8 of an inch. You don't want to go much more than this. So you'll see a lot out there. There are some that are 1/2 inch and 3/8 of an inch. The 3/8 of an inch is just going to be way too thick for you. So look for the 1/8 of an inch. And then you're also going to want to look for one that has a bit of stretch to it. So this one stretches in the width, but we have nothing in the length here. Depending on where you are in the world, this might be relatively expensive, and the nice thing about it is you're not going to need very much of it. So this piece I have here, this is it folded in half, it's across the width of fabric, but it's 60 inches wide, and I have about a 1/2 yard here. This is going to get me through quite a few bra projects. So even if it's a little bit expensive where you are, you won't need very much of it to get through quite a few bras. So again, we can use this in bras. You can also use it in a swim top to give yourself a little bit more shaping, and it does give you obviously a little bit of padding. The other thing that we're going to want when we work with cut and sew foam is some sort of seam tape. So some patterns may have you line after you use your cut and sew foam, but some of them may just tell you to finish off your seams. So because of the nature of bras and where they sit on our body, we won't want the seam against the nipple line because that's going to be very uncomfortable. So we're going to want to cover it up with some sort of seam tape. So I like to use twill tape, and this has a lot of uses. If you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know that I talk about stabilizing through the cup and through the underarm area, and this twill tape would be something that you can use for that as well. So it's a bit of a jack of all trades. You can get this nice big roll of it for a relatively cheap amount, so it's a great thing to have in your bra making toolkit there. Okay, when we go to cut our foam, so you can cut through 2 layers of it. It might be a little bit tricky if you do that, so I recommend if you are new to this, just do 1 layer at a time. The pattern pieces I'm using today, and most likely the ones that you're using as well, will have your direction of greatest stretch marked. So that's your dogs, if you remember that acronym from before. So my dogs here is going to indicate which way I want my stretch going, and again, this is only a 2-way stretch, so it's pretty easy to figure that out. If I happen to have 4-way stretch cut and foam, which is very rare to find, but it does exist, you'll just want to figure out which one of them has the greatest stretch. Okay, laying out my pieces. So this one just has my has a 3-piece cup, and that's all I'll be cutting out of this. You pretty much never use your cut and sew foam for anything other than the cup. The bridge is not going to be out of your cut and sew foam, and nor is the band. We're just using it solely for the cup. Okay, so go ahead, lay out your pieces however you like, and then to cut them, you can use scissors or you can use your rotary cutter as well. You might find that you like scissors a little bit better on this just because of the thickness, but I could absolutely go through this quite nicely with my rotary cutter. Okay, so up to you. You can absolutely pin it. There's no reason why you can't pin cut and sew foam. I've heard that from a few students that they didn't think that they could pin the foam, but you absolutely can. Go ahead, use as many pins as you want, and then let's cut out our bra. I have my cups all cut out and I'm ready to start stitching them. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is change your machine to a zigzag. So zigzag, you want to keep your length relatively short, so I'm going to go between 2 and 3, kind of closer to 2, and then you want to turn your width up. So if you have a machine where you can change the actual width in millimeters, you're going to want to go at least 4. On my machine I'm going to turn all the way up to a 5. So I have my machine set up to go here. I've transferred the notches from my pattern onto my pieces, so I used a little bit of tailor's wax and just transferred these over. So if your pattern has any notches or markings, go ahead and do that. So we're going to butt the edges of the foam together here. So I'm not doing any pinning on this, I just have them butted together, hence the wide zigzag. So go ahead and start with your needle, get it all the way to the left, and then just make sure that you're hitting into the edge of the left side of your foam, and then we're going to go ahead and go into the right side as well. So I like to just do one stitch and make sure that I'm covering both. I'm using a contrasting color here so that you can see what I'm doing, but obviously at home you would want to use something that matches. And then I'm just going to go ahead and start stitching. You can do a quick back stitch at the beginning, and then just as you're going, because this has a little bit of stretch of it, it's going to stretch a little bit as you move, so just keep going. Line up at those markings. Okay, make sure you're not getting wonky on your stitch. Okay, and you're just butting them together. Okay, make sure your edges line up. You can use your fingers to kind of help you manipulate in here as well. Okay, all the way to the end. And I'm going to do a quick back stitch. And then off you go. Depending on the number of pieces in your cup, we'll do your construction slightly differently, but basically we want to apply twill tape in between adding sections. So before I add my top on, I want to apply twill tape to this seam. So I'm going to go back to a straight stitch. Okay, and you can keep your length and width relatively the same here. If you find that it's not moving well enough through your machine, you can go ahead and turn it up. So you're going to line up your twill tape. I usually just leave a little bit of an edge hanging off. And you want to line it up so you're covering that seam. Okay, and then I'm going to stitch here on the edge of my tape. And you could also use, a lot of people like to use ribbon for this as well. So if you have some little bits of ribbon at home that you want to use up, this is a great thing for them. Just make sure whatever is that it's soft, because this is going right against your skin. Okay, try and stay as straight as you can. I'm stitching with a camera next to me, so it's always a little bit tough to stay straight. Okay, get to the end. Let's do a little back stitch. Okay, and coming off, I'm going to go ahead and trim the excess twill tape off now. Okay, and then I'm going to repeat here on the other side of my stitch. So same thing. So I stitched up one edge, and then now we're going to do the other. Like I said, you're at home, you don't have a camera next to you, so you're going to get those stitches nice and straight. And same thing. So once I've got that done, I'm going to go ahead and trim off all of my excess here, and then we will go ahead and attach the other part of the cup. We're going to go ahead and repeat for the upper cup now. So if you have a multi-piece cup, mine is a 3-piece, but if you have 4, maybe even 5, you know, you're just going to have to do a few more steps here. So same thing, I'm going to go back to my zigzag nice and wide, and then I always check, I get it all the way to the left. Make sure that's puncturing my left edge here, and then I'm good to start sewing. Okay, so again, I have a notch here. I'm going to line that up with that seam I've already done on my twill tape. And just use those fingers as you go to help you manipulate. Make sure you're lining up at any of your points and keep those edges nicely butted together. So now I have my cup. I'm going to go ahead and apply twill tape here, just like we did in the last step. All right, and there we have it. We have a lovely cup done out of our cut and sew foam. So this will be my outer that will now get covered with whatever fabric I choose, whether it's lace or if I want to do an all over fabric as well. On the inside here, I have my twill tape or ribbon. If you find that you don't like the way this feels against your skin, you might find this a little bit uncomfortable, you can go ahead and line the cup. Your pattern might have separate lining pieces. They might instruct you on what type of lining to use, but for the most part, you could use a sheer cup lining or you could use a little bit of interfacing, whatever you'd like to feel nice and soft against your skin. Make sure you do use a color that matches. Obviously, I've done a contrasting one so that we can see here, and make sure that when you're doing your pieces that you do construct your other cup mirrored, okay? We don't want to end up with two left cups. Let me know in the comments how you did there, if you have any questions, and make sure you like and subscribe so that you see all of our videos.